Our Vice Chair Crandall.
All right, so I'll start with so I'll go back a couple of weeks because we had last week off. Went to DC. I went with the Robinson Rancheria tribe. I'm the vice chair of the tribe, so I'm able to go on specific trips here and there. So not in the position of chair any longer because I want to concentrate fully on my supervisorial position, but still serve in that capacity. So I was able to go and take care of some county business as well as going with the tribe. Was able to visit with Senator Alex Padilla, of course, Congressman Thompson's office, but we had dinner with him Tuesday night. You ended up leaving that night. You had to leave earlier, but you were able to meet with him in the office. And so just a lot of discussion. I know one of the discussions that we had that I know that he mentioned, and I'll go ahead and just kind of go to my RCRC notes because he talked about this couple of things, and one being the Insure HR 6944 that's coming out that he is a co-sponsor on, and that is a federal bill aimed at addressing property insurance crisis. And so it promises to have a positive impact on the availability and affordability of property insurance in California, particularly in high wildfire risk areas where insurers are currently withdrawing from the market. And then there's a lot more on it. I can give more information later. However, just wanted to highlight that that is something the RCRC is fully backing as well. I know another bill, a bipartisan tax deal that he's co-sponsoring as well with Congressman LaMalfa is the bipartisan tax bill, and it is a $78 billion tax package for relief for families and workers of 2024, which holds significance in California, and that's for victims of taxation after fire, an effort by Congress to exempt wildfire relief payments from federal income taxes encompassing various elements such as legal fees, emotional distress, lost wages, and additional living expenses. And so it streamlines the process for deducting losses incurred due to disasters. The funding for this legislation, this comprehensive legislation, is secured through a bipartisan agreement, reallocating previous designated funds intended for COVID relief. So they're basically going to reallocate or whatever was left over from COVID and try to put that into this. So just wanted to mention those two because he mentioned those at dinner, and so just wanted to mention that because it's very important, and glad to know that there's something else that we have aside from our state option. Not saying it's still in the process. It's not like it's done, but they're working on something, so that was good to hear. What's that?
Adam Schiff's.
Yeah, that was Adam. Yeah, he's they're still waiting on McConnell to address or come about it. I think that's what it said right here. Let me see, just to make sure. I don't want to misquote it. Oh, they're waiting for him. He hasn't disclosed his stance, but he eventually will. There's some Senate Republican tax writers that have indicated preference for their own markup of the bill, but so it might introduce some amendments. But all in all, they're working on it together. So that's good news. I hope. Let's see. Padilla's office, that was basically to talk about Lake County issues, but also in particular they wanted to talk about the Walker Ridge project that that Senator Padilla put in place for the Moloch-Loic renaming of the Berryessa Snow Mountain Monument, and so that was a topic of discussion as well. And among the other things, I also visited the forestry there. I spoke with the tribal liaison Terry Logson, and she referred me to Frank Abley, who is supporting a grant. Now, I think the grant is Scotts Valley. I didn't necessarily have the full grant package on me. I just seen the grant announcement. But in talking with them, I just let them know about the Lake County Risk Reduction Authority and the issues we've had in Lake County with fire and whatnot. And it was, to me, I felt like we had a really good discussion. Chairman Cromwell from Robinson was with me, and he had other knowledge about the situation. So I was like, oh, great. It really helped that he was there with me to go ahead and explain that to the forestry department. So that was very helpful as well. So I'm hoping that when they start approving the grant or looking through who they're going to select for that grant, that helped. I hope it helps.
Was that around biomass?
Yes. Let me find the actual I didn't actually write it, but it's, I've had it, so, well, I'll come back to it because I don't want to miss the other stuff too. Well, yeah, it's the biomass. It was a grant for the way that they'll deal with wood. So that was one of the nominations of it. So that was, so then I came back here last week and went to RCRC. Just talked about some of the things that were going on with that. When it comes to the meeting, we're just preparing for the actual board meeting, which will happen next month. But I did want to state that at the GSFA meeting, which is part of RCRC, Golden State Finance Authority, there's 2 pending and 2 closed down payment assistance that Lake County employees have used. So that was really good to hear. Following that meeting, came back for Worth this week. Tomorrow we'll have agenda review. I have a meeting here at the office or a phone call at the office. Lake County Recreation Agency will be Thursday, and then Saturday is the auction. Sheriff's auction?
Sheriff's Ball.
Is it what it's called? Sheriff's Ball?
Sheriff Foundation.
Foundation Ball, okay, I thought it was an auction, a silent auction.
There's an auction.
Okay, wanted to make sure. CAO meeting Monday, and then back here Tuesday.
Thank you very much for that.
Okay. So we also were in DC, but different meetings. We did have this meetings also with Padilla's office and Congressman Thompson's office, and we brought our Lake County issues that we're talking about. But the first day was the FEMA training, which all 4 of us participated in. And then subsequent conversations with FEMA around the national approach on fire insurance. And one of the things that, because it's a state issue, but it's also every state's issue, if it's fire or flood or hurricane or tornado. And so what is the federal government's role, and what are the national threads that could be pulled to kind of bring some policy together that could be really helpful and support the states as they develop policy. So what we talked a lot about what's happening in the state of Alabama in several different workshops and committee meetings. And what's happening in Alabama is really interesting because we know we've been through our own disasters. We've had FEMA here, and the change in thinking is all the proactive work to make sure that when we're talking about climate risk, how can we have economic stability and sustainability? And so it's investing money before there's a disaster to mitigate, major spending. So the data shows that every $1 invested ahead of time saves $7 down the road. So in Alabama, FEMA is investing $10,000 in every house to help with the hurricane, so hurricane ties and roofing and all those things. And that's a pretty low cost if you think about it. But what's happening is they're hardening communities, and now the insurers are just flocking to Alabama. There's not the problem that we're seeing in other states, and that is a project that's happening here with the home hardening project program through FEMA in Kelseyville Riviera. That's cluster hardening a community for climate adaptation. So it's really interesting to have all these conversations with not just our rural colleague partners from California, because we are working on this with my Agriculture, Environment, and Natural Resources Policy Committee with CSAC. We met briefly with our group there to kind of continue the discussions on how we're going to work this year on fire insurance, but also to be working with our national colleagues. So there was a lot happening there. Obviously, this is not something that we're going to solve here today, but the question, it's always really interesting when you have these conversations, particularly with the industry, is the insurance industry is saying, you have to do all these mitigation issues. You have to do defensible space and harden your home and all of those things because that's on you. You're uninsurable. But when we say, well, we have entirely rebuilt communities built to the latest codes, and there's literally no more forest there. Why are these communities uninsured? And they don't have an answer for that. They say, well, because the whole industry, is suffering and losing money and hemorrhaging money. So what is it? Right? Is it our responsibility? Is it your responsibility? So there's a whole lot out there. It's still a mess, but having these conversations together, we are kind of making some progress on what, and studying places like Alabama on how we could move forward and what could be beneficial, and when we finally start to see a leveling out. So most of the conversations were circular and in those realms. We did, we did have an opportunity to hear President Biden speak to a whole room full of county supervisors and commissioners, which is really, incredible, because he started as a county supervisor, and he, they always say that's where the rubber meets the road. But then he also said, and they all know where you live, and everybody started laughing because that's the truth. Because when we work at this level, we are embedded in our communities all the time. So Tuesday was our Capitol Hill Day, and we worked on fire insurance, tree mortality, Lake Pillsbury, what else? Several other issues. But anyway, overall, I felt like we got a lot out of it. It was our first time sending a full delegation. It's important to be building those relationships, not just with the electeds, but the staff in the departments and the staff of our electeds. So it was a great trip. It was exhausting. We did a whole lot. And then tree mortality task force meeting that I had on the 16th when we came back. Really bad news. Mediterranean oak borer has now moved all the way into Mendocino National Forest. So 2 years ago, we were alerted that it was crossing into Middletown, and now it's countywide. So that is very, very unfortunate. But the Risk Reduction Authority is working to put on a town hall in the spring, so we can really bring that education out to the community on how to mitigate this as best we can. But this is an invasive species, and it's devastating our valley oaks and our blue oaks. But there are some things that we can do. Stop moving firewood around, for one, but that's really difficult because a lot of people use firewood. So look for that conversation later in the spring. Hopefully it's going to be in April. And then our evacuation corridor grant plan is about to wrap up. We're finishing all the projects there. There was about 100 dead trees being removed from the Soda Bay corridor. The grant wraps up the end of March. So this is the time when all the work is finishing. The trees are almost cut down. But more importantly, our draft of the evacuation plan that we've been working on for a year, we're having another community meeting tomorrow night at Conocti Harbor Inn. This is an open house from 4 to 7. People can come in and give their feedback on that plan, and then it will be adopted by the end of March. And the grant will be successfully completed. It's $380,000. That's been a focus on clearing vegetation from that evacuation route and the plan, and we bought the masticator head. So that's been a big job, and really a lot of really great things have come out of it. We had our a Risk Reduction Authority DEI training on the 20th, which Supervisor Simon, Terry, Logston, Chief Duncan, and Ben Murphy all participated in that. That's a requirement for the APGB grant that we're working through. And then our biomass, we didn't get to do the presentation today, but so much is going on with that. So I'm really excited for our next meeting, so you guys can all learn more about that big old project we're working on. And then, let's see. So tomorrow, Before the evacuation meeting, we've got the home hardening biweekly meeting. I have the NCO board meeting, and then I will go straight to Canocti for the evacuation meeting. And then Thursday, I have jury duty, so I'm going to be here, see how that goes. And then I'll make the recreation meeting. That's in Clear Lake. Yes. And then on March 1st, I'm going to Robinson Rancheria in the afternoon. Saturday, I will be going to the Sheriff's Ball. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to go, but my plans have changed. Sunday is the Fiddler's Jam. I'm not sure if I'll be able to make that. It looks like it's going to be awfully stormy over the weekend, so that may get canceled. Then I've got my meeting with CAO Parker in the morning, and then back on Tuesday.
I actually found the name of the grant. Wood Products Infrastructure Assistance Grants. And one of the things that I really tried to emphasize was the partnership amongst the county and how ready it is. And so that's the important thing that I wanted to emphasize. Seemed to be taken really well with that. And so I just wanted to, I found it on a different, what do they call it? Not Google, and then you have the Safari. You have them all kind of you think you could find them, but yeah, that's what it was called. And so that's what Frank sent to me. So I wanted to make sure I highlighted that.
Scotts Valley applying for
I
that?
think they're the lead on it, but
Okay.
it's amongst partnering with different agencies. And so, again, I didn't have the complete details, so I took the approach of just sharing what Lake County's done since the fires took place and just gave what insight I had, because also I'm not on the Lake County Risk Reduction Authority any longer, but knowing what we've gotten from here, just was able to explain that. And again, I didn't even expect Chair Cromwell to come with me, but he kind of knew a different side of things that really helped in that capacity. And you know what? When I went back to my calendars, I forgot to mention, didn't forget, I skipped over this. I actually went to Sacramento yesterday. They had a California Tribal Nations Summit with the governor and basically his cabinet and staff and whatnot. And so there was a question and answer session. Usually they only allow the one tribal leader to speak, but one of the other leaders didn't. So I asked if I can take his time, and I stated that in my minutes I stated to the governor that I would like to see a way for them to crack down on fentanyl sales. It's killing our children and families. And then I said, with that being said, meth sales are actually nickel and diming us, and it's the silent killer and the slow leak to everything, really. So if we can look at that and our resources locally, tribally, and even at their level, it's drained because of this concept. And I know this because in my district, in your districts, everybody's districts, we have people committing small crimes, petty theft, and a lot of it's tied to meth. And so that was my comment. Along with that, also illicit grows in the hills. And then saying, you do have carte blanche to activate the National Guard. And so I mentioned that as well. And so he did make a comment. I didn't really I recorded it, so I didn't get to, kind of decipher what he said, but he was actually commenting how they're working on something to do with catching the sales, working with China to catch the sales in a different country like Mexico or something like that, saying it's working. But I really wanted to look further into it before I know if that's really what was the answer that I was getting. That was actually something. So, but the 1 minute turned into 6 minutes, so it was good because some others didn't go that long. So I had a couple of people come up to me afterwards and say, I actually texted the Human Services state rep, and I texted this person. And from the state staff. So I had a couple of other topics of discussion on that too. So even though I went for the tribe, I was able to bear fruit in other ways as well to try to highlight, because we're all dealing with the same problems, whether it's tribal government, county government, or city government. This is what a lot of other folks brought up: housing. They brought up homelessness. They brought up all of those other things. I didn't want to harp on that, and I didn't hear this being mentioned, so I mentioned it. So.
Like fire, it doesn't have a jurisdiction. It covers everything, unfortunately. Thank you for that. Supervisor Green?
Well, it's underachiever hour here. I thank my colleagues for the extensive report on their extensive advocacy, and I appreciate it truly, and I hope this community does. We are well served when our elected representatives go outside county to fight the good fight on our behalf. That said, my report will be fairly brief. I did meet with our Scotts Valley Community Advisory Council yesterday. We have a kind of a new mix of the board there, and it's exciting to see them pick up where last year's council left off, and they have so many things, but it's hard for them to follow the bouncing ball, and it's kind of hard for me to advocate on their behalf to follow the bouncing ball as well. So without putting anybody on the spot, I am going to be reaching out to Terry and Director DeLeon and whoever I can get from Water Resources. They have several subjects of specific interest that they're looking for an update on sooner than later, and I would appreciate some backup on that. So I'll put out an email on that. Tomorrow, a reminder, thank you, Chair Sabatier. First Five Commission will be meeting, and I have a time conflict with the IHSS committee, which is reborn and finally going to meet after a long period of dormancy. So I want to make sure I'm paying attention to that group appropriately, and if there are any time conflicts I need to resolve in future months, I'll address that at that time. And you know what? I'm just going to leave it at that because I cannot possibly follow that act, and I'm not even going to try. Chair Sabatier, you carry on because I know you are going to have a full report too.
I'll try to be brief, and thank you. I was really excited about our NACO trip. The sessions were good. The connection with other colleagues were good. What's exciting is I am now part of NACO's Health Steering Committee. I co-sponsored a resolution to be sent to Congress to revise our rural EMS reimbursement rates, which is a huge issue for us. And I'm keeping track of where that might be, waiting for that to be finalized from the NACO side so I can also provide that to our congressman and see if he's able to take that on and is interested in it. Just on a little side note, some of the work that's been going on when it comes to the EMS, I don't know if I'm repeating myself from the last meeting, but there are currently 17 students at Lower Lake High School that are taking the EMT courses, and I know that Clear Lake High School already has 20 students lined up and is hoping to get their program started next semester. So now we'll have multiple schools and potentially more added into that want to take on this program, and that's really exciting. Really thankful that Konocti Unified just jumped on that and made it happen in less than 3 months, which is amazing. One of the, at the Health Steering Committee, one of the things that was interesting, I'm sure most of us may or may not know about DARPA. DARPA is basically the inventor of the internet, the inventor of GPS and many other technologies that we use regularly nowadays. They are just an innovation department that really aims to move technology forward. Well, they've taken that concept and they've applied it to healthcare. So I don't know why they didn't call it HARPA, but it's ARPA-H. And it's basically healthcare innovation at a absolute intense schedule where if 6 months or 3 months down the road you're not seeing the outcomes of this project, scrap it, move on to the next one. It's high intensity, and I believe they said that the people that work on those projects are only staying for 1 to 2 years, and then they recycle to get new people because they want to get fresh eyes and fresh brains on ensuring that we're innovating in the area of healthcare. And knowing that our health metrics are where they are, that is something that definitely perked my ears, and I will be continuing those conversations with the Health Steering Committee on how it is that we can capitalize on those innovations as well. Some of them are really looking at a almost like a mobile emergency room unit. They had a whole system set up. They showed us the blueprints, had a CAT scan machine within one of those mobile units and everything. And so, again, reaching areas that are hard to serve where people may not have quick and direct access. I thought that it's just interesting to see where we're going and what we're creating in order to solve today's problems. Had some good conversations regarding Army Corps of Engineers. Really amazing session to go to. So one thing that I learned that I was not aware of until I just put the puzzle pieces together is the Army Corps of Engineers we have yet to have a conversation with them. Hopefully we will soon, but they will be involved with Lake Pillsbury at one point or another. It's not just FERC, it's not just DWR at the state level, but it will also be the Army Corps. And so I think that we need to make those connections, have those conversations, and start there. FEMA also provides funding. This was in our first Friday FEMA session, provides funding to help cover the cost of the non-federal district for Army Corps of Engineer projects. We're very nervous about the price tag of Middle Creek restoration. We know it's important. How do we get there? There's waivers, there's FEMA funding, and there's also very low interest loans, and having those pathways and avenues available to us will lead us to the right place on what it is that we need to do to make sure that we move those things forward. USDA was probably one of the more exciting sessions with the Secretary of Agriculture. I felt like he was specifically speaking about the project that is being discussed at our Food Policy Council, where the idea is to decentralize food production and bring it back to the local community so that we can be self-sustaining and all of that. They're picked up some paperwork for value-added grants where you not just grow your own products, your own produce and fruits, but you add that value to enhance your economic viability with your agricultural business. There's a lot of potential funding dedicated specifically to not creating, but supporting local farmers rather than large commercial corporate farmers. And I think that everything that they spoke directly to me in the conversations that we're having at our local food production policy. And in fact, our Food Policy Council has attracted the attention of CDFA. Their first time that they approached us in the meeting, they already offered a $300,000 grant to one of our farmers that happened to be at that committee meeting. And so we're getting the attention that we need, and now we just got to put the pieces together to figure out what kind of grant funding we want to go out for. So between USDA, the health, and the Army Corps of Engineer, to me, those were the highlights of the information that I gathered and able to come back with in order to continue the work that we're doing. We just, Supervisor Green and myself continued the strategic plan for the next 5 years for First Five. That meeting will also continue and occur on this Wednesday for our First Five Commission. As far as tomorrow, I have agenda review, a Lakeport shelter update. I'm working with PEG TV to figure out some of our issues that we're dealing with. And after my First Five meeting, I'll be going to Lake County Fire Protection District to listen in and see what they're up to. And then other than Saturday, where I'm meeting with our Little League and the Sheriff Gala, I will be, I don't know what the following week looks like, but meeting with our CAO and preparing for Tuesday's meeting, and that is all that I have at this moment in time. So we will be, we have a do-over?
You're off the hook for tomorrow. Looks like my IHSS ain't happening. So, First Five.
Thank you very much.